Good evening, everybody. So, welcome back to our live streamed talk show program. So, sorry for the audio problem. So, now we're going to start again from the beginning. And then, of course, like today, we have the privilege to film this live streaming program from the beautiful Hotel Gayatri in Ubud on Jalan Dewi Sita. So, if you ever plan to travel to Ubud in Bali, do consider this hotel. And yeah, to start the live streaming, I would like to ask you, like, who among you are depressed right now? I know, like, since March 2020, right? Like, our lives have been bombarded by this depressing news, not only about the pandemic, but also about the political unrest that is going on all over the world. Like, people are setting the streets on fire everywhere, from Jakarta to Thailand to Hong Kong and to Chile. But and then of course like the delta wave outbreak to add to the depression and with so many people dying, blah blah blah. But thankfully in 2021, as we open the year, we have like a new positive trend which is going on also, in which lots of creative uh, content creators and artists and creative people, they are making their artworks and memes and other items available as non-fungible tokens or NFT. And then of course like the NFT has spurred like so much creativity among like these people, and then it also allows them to share and not only like the serious avant-garde artworks like music or paintings, but also silly memes like the nyan cat or the overly attached girlfriend. So that's kind of funny. So now, in order to add some positive vibes, because now we're in Ubud, right? Eat, pray, love. We're gonna talk about the use of NFTs for collective art projects. And then here with me, I have Holly Chang. She's an artist, so like a painter, dancer, and poet, right? Am I correct? Based in Ubud. And then like she's now working on some collaborative art project, and she's planning to put it out as an NFT when it's done. Okay, so before we start, can you talk about your experience, professional experience, and then your introduction to blockchain, introduction to the art world?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I'm really grateful to be here and share the space with you and share my story. Um, yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a really um, beautiful weaving of this of many intersections of many points in my life, right? Like growing up in the United States. I was born and raised in Los Angeles and lived my entire life there pretty much, and spent like 5 years living in San Francisco as well. And I was always taught since I was a young girl to like study hard and get a good job and pay the bills and do all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the mentality, and that was great. That was I learned so much from that experience. I was working at an advertising company straight out of university, and then realized like actually that's not what I want to do. And then realizing that like purpose is really important for me, and so trying to find ways where I can include purpose and passion within stability and the constructs of society in my current reality in that time. So I went on to work at a startup company that does online ticketing. So I was able to integrate my love for music festivals and music venues and small business owners, and helping them bring online ticket sales. And I also got to travel like all of the United States and Canada and go to different festivals and like meet the owners of these like amazing music venues and help them make their dreams come true. And yeah, and so that was like in my young 20s, and it was a really beautiful experience. And then I moved to San Francisco, and I was working in Silicon Valley in another startup company, and it was a marketplace for creative event spaces, so similar to Airbnb, where you can rent a space hourly. And that kind of wove into my love for events and creating gatherings for people to meet and connect. And like the space that holds it all is the foundation of the event that you're sharing with the world, with your community essentially. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was able to work with like again small business owners, art gallery owners, yoga studio owners, and helping them create a business, an online business. And I learned so much from that experience too, as well as like what it takes to work in a startup company in Silicon Valley. And yeah, and that kind of led me to, well, I guess also on the side of this, I was pursuing genuine passions of what it means to be an artist, right? So like creating events and retreats in San Francisco and Joshua Tree in the desert and lots of like nature and like in the mountains in Santa Cruz and camping and yeah, like really coming into this place of like, what does it mean to create? What does it mean to be an artist? And so one of my favorite events that I created was in San Francisco, where we set the space and we put a date and a time and like marketed it, and it was like organizing this, and it's like, yeah, I had a bunch of friends that are like, yeah, we have our 9 to 5 jobs, and yeah, like I'm not an artist. And it's like, well, what does it even mean to be an artist? You know, is to like share your work, is to create something and to share it in that process of being seen and received. And so yeah, just challenging those preconceived notions of what it means to create has always been alive in me. And that kind of brings me to this. Yeah, it's such like just the way that things unfold, right? And just trusting the intuitive call to like be somewhere because it feels good. And I had met a friend at Burning Man. He became like one of my best friends, and he was working in the blockchain space. This was in 2017. And randomly he calls me and he's like, yo, Holly, I have this really cool art project. You should be a part of it. And I'm like, what is it? Tell me more.
Yeah.
And he says these words like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I'm like, okay, let me like Google what's going on over here. And just like uncovering the layers and like falling into the rabbit hole and like being really aligned with my values. Like the people that I was meeting is like, you know, creating new financial systems, which is the way that we all relate as humans in this current reality here, you know? And yeah, and using art as an educational gateway into that and sharing that from a place of like abundance, you know, like the way that this all kind of came to fruition was like there was a multi-sig wallet that a bunch of people put 1,000 ETH in, and they were like, okay, if you make a bridge that connects Ethereum and Dogecoin, then you get this pot of gold. And the company that my friend was working for, their technology would be like 1/4 of the peg. So that's like 250 ETH at that point, and this was in 2017. And they were going to take this and donate it to an art project. And through this art project, we would create a community of artists and like teaching artists what blockchain technology is and like proof of work and like using like visuals and like, you know, like things that you can feel and touch and see. And including not just like the developers and like the rational logistical side and operational side of it, but including like artists who are super curious and like want, like there's a desire and a deep longing to understand and to learn and to create as well, and creating a community around that. And so that was kind of like my segue into this wild world that we're playing in currently.
Yeah. So that was in 2016, right? When you were working at the Silicon Valley and with all the startups.
Yeah. And then like the end of 2017 was when I was like falling into the rabbit hole of the blockchain space, I would say.
And when your friends said art project, was that the art project? You know, like getting artists together to learn. And then like, were they only like learning the stuff, the technical stuff, but were they also encouraged to create their own projects then?
Yeah, so they were definitely encouraged to create their own projects and like using art to display the concepts. So it was almost like an educational platform of like a visual representation of proof of work. And this was like early days, right? And so we would use like an Arduino Pi thing, and it would light up the more that you would like hit this thing, and then it would light up, and that would be like, okay, that's what proof of work is. And this was at a conference like a Ethereum conference where it's like a hackathon, but then we would have like this like upstairs area and we would call it a makeathon. And so it's kind of like this like artistic way of like intertwining different facets of the technology and including a more well-rounded community of people that are thinking and playing in different ways, which I think is so important.
Yeah, it's very interesting that maybe we can do it in Ubud as well. Like we have lots of visual artists and musicians here and content creators also. To just have a forum, right? Where we can learn together and then like brainstorm. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a discussion, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's like what you touched on is like it's not really a discussion, but it's like play almost, you know? You like put a bunch of people in and like shake the box and it's like, okay, what's gonna happen here? And like, can we come from this place of play, of like curiosity, and we don't know what's gonna happen, and like we're all open to all of the possibilities. And it's almost like this like childlike wonder, although we're like, you know, we're dealing with like some real serious stuff here. But, like, but yeah, can we have fun doing it as well?
Yeah. Maybe after the lockdown is over, we can do it in our office. Then, like, yeah,
Okay.
such a great idea. Yeah, and also tell me about, because you told me in the beginning before we started the recording, I think you said that you didn't really pursue your artistic impulses or intuition until much later in life. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you know, it's like growing up as an Asian American woman, right? It's like this is the societal construct of like what is good, and art and music and dance was never really included in that profile. And it wasn't really until like my later 20s in my travels, I started traveling. I was traveling for the last 2 years before, living in Ubud for the last year and a half, where I just was like, okay, like, let me see what it is that I truly desire and like that I'm pulled towards, and like what lights me up and what am I curious about, and like this artistic side of me is fully alive, and dare I allow her to come out and play as well. And it's been like such a big part of my journey to really unfold in that way. And I think that's part of like where I am now as an artist, as a creator, of like embracing all those sides of me, as well as like, you know, my past like corporate and like really like grounded and logical space. And like, can those two sides of me play and interact and come from like a really wholesome place? And from there, what will I create? And that's super, super fun and exciting for me to play with that.
Yeah, I have two questions, actually two-part questions. Like the first question, I've never been to the US, although I have heard stories about the country, of course. But what is it about the Asian, like because you say particularly Asian Americans, being an artist isn't necessarily included in the script of what you should grow up to be. So why is that, number one? And then number two, like where did you start your artistic exploration?
That's a great question, you know, and this is simply from my own personal experience of like, you know, growing up, it was like, okay, if you're an artist, you're going to be poor. There's no money in art, you know, like there's money in computer science, if you're a doctor, lawyer, banker. But like artists, like that's for fun. And that's like, you know, that's not really important. At least that's what was alive in my family and my upbringing. And, you know, I'm here to challenge that notion. I'm here to challenge the notion of like, there can still be abundance in this creating of art. You know, all of this is worthy. And that's why it's like super exciting where we are right now in technology and like society of like, okay, like there are opportunities for art to be this really powerful, abundant, resourceful thing. And may it be like a positive feedback loop, actually. Like the more that I create and play from this place of like pure artistic creation, may someone else in the world receive abundantly from that and share their resources in return. And may that be the positive feedback loop. And that's what I'm willing to experiment with. here.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. And what
And
was the second part of your question? I'm
the
thinking.
exploration, because you do like different what you call it, medium? Is that what you call it? Like
Yeah.
painting, dancing? Like, yeah, where did your exploration start then?
Oh wow.
Mm,
Amazing.
what was the introduction?
Oh, I would say it was through dance first and foremost, and um, yeah, super interesting because now I'm like looking back in my travels and like it's always been dance and music, and like I would go to like music festivals in my young 20s, and like it was about like community and friends, and there's music and dance, and like within the body there's so much wisdom and remembering
Mm,
that like I felt like as a younger Holly I was just like touching on that, and then as I've like evolved in my travels and like gravitating towards what it is that lights me up and fills me up, it's dance, and just like trusting the music, the input is what brings out the output within the body.
mm,
Yeah, so I would say it started there, and then like combining like my poetry and my words. I've always loved writing and like expression, and like through the voice as well has been like a huge part of my journey. And so like playing with all of these like different mediums and like how they interact with each other as well. So like I'm playing with like dancing and spoken word and like whatever comes out through the words through the body. And then I'm
ah,
also playing with like dancing and painting. So like
mm,
with like embodied movement and attunement of like the music and what's coming through, and like pouring it out into paint, into like a visual representation of like colors, and a like I can see what is coming out with my hands, and can I practice radical self acceptance with every brush stroke and every movement within
mm,
my body that's coming out from this hand to this paintbrush onto this paper. Like, can I be fully there and fully loving of that? That's
mm.
been, yeah, that's been part of my exploration in my creation process.
So embodiment of the creative process. And you also
Mhm.
mentioned you're like embodiment experience designer. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
embodied experience designer,
Ah.
embodiment experience designer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's about creating experiences that are transformational, that like you're embodied in through the body, embodied through the body,
Mm-hmm.
embodied
Yeah.
through the body,
Yeah.
and in that there's change happening. There's like
Mm-hmm.
something within your experience. There's an imprint of like, okay, well now I see the world differently now,
Mm.
and now I can like I may or I'm the hope is that I may go out there back into the world after this experience and show up in a different way.
Can you give an example? Maybe not too personal, maybe someone else's example. Like how the transformation happened, after that embodiment process and that
Yeah,
expression.
yeah, definitely. So, this is like the newest creation that I've been working on. It's a
Mm-hmm.
workshop that I'm creating called the Art of Divine Creation, and it's for women specifically. This one, and it's remembering the goddess within. And when I say goddess, I mean the innate divinity that is within all of us. Like we're all born on this planet and we're breathing and living and
Mm-hmm.
being alive, and that in itself makes us divine in its own right. And simply remembering that, because when we were born we knew that, right? Like when we were born as a baby, like all we knew was like happy to be alive here, like I'm so happy. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like the conditioning and the whatever it
Yeah.
is, like lifetimes of that, and simply remembering. And so through different embodiment practices of calling in the divine feminine, and like through dance and through the music, we come to that place of the goddess within, and then from that place we create. And so from that place, i'm I'm guiding women in this creation process, and we're going to create kind of like this like giant co-created art piece on a piece of canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever is poured out from that place, I like I can only imagine how beautiful and divine that can be. You know, when you come from that place of like full acceptance and self-love, like that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, so my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, so the transformation actually has to do with transcending our conditioning in order to remember, to return to our true self. Because like usually like our minds are really clouded, you know, like by all this poison, or not necessarily poison. I mean, it's just the noise, right, of being
Right.
human.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? So just to
Yeah.
like see through the noise and then get to the signal, like who you really are.
Absolutely. And you know, it's like
Yeah.
the noise is there, right? It's
Yes.
always been there. It's been there
Unless
for
we're dead.
generations.
Yeah, unless you're
we're
dead.
And it's like, hello. It's finally silent now. It's finally silent.
Eaten
Oh,
by
thank
worms.
God. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's because I'm dead. Yeah.
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 And then why women? And then okay, another two-part question, which is actually not good in journalism, you know. But then let me do it now.
Yeah.
So the first question, why women? And then like the second one, is it the same thing or has to do also with healing? Because in Ubud here we have so many healing communities, and then people traveling from mostly like from the Western countries, right? To heal and for 6 months, and then they return anyway. So two-part question.
Yeah. So my work with women really excites me because it is like the divine feminine, you know? It's like there's so much, I see it as like creative power. And like as a woman, we create life. Like we like every single human being on this planet came from a woman's womb, you know? And so like tapping into that juice, that piece of nectar is like, yeah, it's fire there. There's like ignition. There's like a lot of like energy that wants to be revved up. And I also feel like, especially in technology and like, you know, in traditional technology spaces, it's a lot of men. You know, like when I was working in the blockchain space, I was like one of the only women in a room full of like 50 men, and there's something about like creating a portal or a gateway for women to like come in through that and to like learn and really just like embody their fullest potential, and coming from that place and like learning and like coming into power. And it's also like that's what's going to heal the world ultimately. And that goes into your second question of like having the divine feminine come through and like being embraced and fully empowered in that space, and there creates a balance there. And I think that's where the true healing happens, is when like we can be in balance, we can be in tune with the masculine and the feminine.
Oh yeah, in equal proportion, the yin and the yang.
Yeah, and we can support each other as well, you know, and dance with each other.
Yeah, because actually like there's a hard balance to strike, you know, like because people are usually like leaning toward the other extreme, one extreme or the other, right?
Right,
Like oh yeah.
And like may we like that's like an interesting metaphor of like leaning on one and the other. Like may we lean on each other. May we both be present, so that like even if we are leaning on one side, may the other, even if they're an opposite side, like be there so that you can like lean on them. And may it be kind of like this sway even of like of a trust. It's kind of like a trust fall even, like okay.
Yeah, I get what you mean, because like for some people they might over identify perhaps with their feminine side, so like always helping, always compassionate, but then they run into burnout. And then in that case, like somebody else who have like a strong masculine side has to remind them like, hey, you know, like that's not all there is. And then you should, I think that's what you mean, right? Because instead of just being too individualistic about it, like we're relying on each other to just maintain the fine balance, because we're interdependent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that like and that's kind of like taking even bigger to like the resources on this planet. Like when we
Mm-hmm.
talk about financial resources, like so much of the wealth on this earth is held by like such a small percentage,
1%.
right?
Yeah, controls like 88% of all the resources or something like that.
Yeah. And it's like, why?
Yeah,
What are you going to do with that pile of money over there? Like,
to
and
be
may we
immortal. Anyway.
immortal, yes, with my
Yeah.
pile of gold. Well, that's what will make me immortal here. Yeah.
Anyway, and then
Uh,
like what do you see in the decentralized technology which can maybe pave the way toward more I mean how to put it to help more people access resources.
yeah. I mean, I see it as a turning point, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity point, and it's like ding, and it's I'd still say it's quite untapped. We're still in the nascent phase of like, okay, like so much is possible here, and we're just like tapping. Even like 2017, so like 4 years ago, when it just was like OpenSea was just like a page, a home page, really.
Yeah.
In that sense, it's like, okay, like these are little gateway doors that we can like open and be like,
Hmm.
what's going on over here? How do we do this? And
Mm-hmm.
what are we going to choose?
Yeah.
And so within that, there's the choice within each individual of which platforms to use. Are they aligned with my values? Are they supporting the creators? Are they supporting the rich? Are they, these are like big questions to ask, and I don't necessarily know the answer to all of them.
Hmm.
And that's what I look at when I'm deciding what to do and who to play with. And so to bring it back to your question of like, this technology is brewing. It's here. It's arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all experimenting in every moment, right? Even
Hmm.
this conversation is an experiment.
Yes.
We're just like, hey, what's gonna happen here when we put two people together and start talking
Yeah.
about stuff?
Yeah.
And yeah, so like may more people from all walks of life feel enabled and feel welcomed and capable of playing with the experiment as well.
Hmm. Yeah, to investigate what is this new tool
Hmm.
that's available.
Yeah, I like the word that you said, it's like investigate. And I even want to take it
Mm-hmm.
further. It's like, may we investigate it with a curious lens, from this lens of curiosity. Like, okay, what's going on? What's happening here? What happens if I do this? Let me just put it up here and see what happens. Like, you never know what's possible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, to the willingness to experiment, that word again, experiment,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, so tell me about your workshop. So, like, based on my understanding, the artwork will only be created after the workshop, right? Which is like now put on hold because of the lockdown. But,
Mhm.
um, okay, where should I begin? Too many questions on my head. Okay, so how do you gather the women to join the collective and the workshop?
Yeah, so being based in Bali for the last year and a half, I found that there's a collection of women that are attracted to each other, and it's like women that are first and foremost like open to experimenting with this new concept, because this is like, it's never been done before in this way of creating a collective out of like a single event as like the first
Hmm.
ideation, and like it's like birthing a baby,
Hmm.
and like we're coming together and we're collectively birthing a baby. And so like it's women that are open to this concept and also open to birthing something together. And I think that's like the the first part of it. And it's also women that are like, they're creating either like their jewelry line or their online course, or
Hmm.
like their business and their purpose.
Hmm.
And it brings together this like really, yeah, it's a really special group of women. And I'm starting small, just because it's the first experiment and it's in person. And it's
Hmm.
also like, like we were talking about earlier, how like sometimes when there's a thing that seems like bad or like not not what you expected, it actually opens up an opportunity for something even bigger and like that you couldn't even imagine. And so this is also giving me an opportunity of seeing like, okay, if we can't meet in person in the moment of like what we want, what we originally planned for, like how do I bring this online? And maybe we can work with women all over the world in a bigger capacity. And yeah, that part excites me as well.
Oh yeah, so I see what you mean. You mean like within the limitations that we currently have because of our situation, there can be like within the challenge there lies the opportunity to learn and expand and stretch, right? In terms of
Absolutely.
yeah, so
Yeah.
not all limitations are necessarily bad.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
think any
yeah,
limitation is like,
yeah,
it's like maybe now it feels and looks bad, but it's like when you
yeah.
like look at it from above, maybe even if it's like 3 or 5 or 10 or 100 years later, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, that's why that has to happen, for that to happen, for that to happen.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Also, like with lots of people, actually, people who are not artists. Yeah, that word again. Who's an artist? Like who has the right to
Who's
define
artist?
who's an artist? But
Right.
in Indonesia, actually, like since I think March 2020 last year. So since people were locked inside their homes, like many people, more people have been putting out their creative works out there as Insta stories. I mean, whether
Mhm.
they're playing music
Mhm.
as an ensemble or reading poetry, dancing even, which we
Mhm.
hadn't seen before the lockdown, right? So
Mhm.
like, yeah, it's like, is it something positive or negative? Both at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah, and I think it's like
Mm,
the freedom to express, to fully express, even if it's not like perfect, like I'm the best dancer out there, or like this poem is perfect and all it's right. It's like
mm-hmm,
actually like I have this device that I
mm-hmm.
can simply share
Yeah,
what it is that I'm feeling in this moment in like the raw, purest form of that. And that's something like that's so beautiful and like where I feel like we're like in the biggest whirl of that with the pandemic, with people being online and wanting to feel connected more with, we might be like here and you might be there in your rooms and these
mm,
walls, and yet like we can still express what it is that we're feeling and like be received in that way.
yeah, yeah, and commenting, not commenting, appreciating each other's works. I
Mhm.
think really, and the spontaneity. Like, okay,
Yeah.
screw it, I'm just gonna do it now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's out there. It's out
yeah,
there.
yeah, 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 yeah. But then it's also interesting, like because I also showed you the project. So it's called Trans Women Stories Transcending Borders, like
Mhm.
involving like 10 trans women Indonesians,
Mhm.
and like they were not artists by training or by profession, right? But then like they were being coached like for 6 months to do like to prepare the script for their performance and then to actually perform on camera.
Mhm.
And then I was interpreting for the launching of the project. So like I heard the moderator was a theater director by
Mhm.
training, and then she said like this is the really interesting thing. Like when you're the first, it's when it's your first time coming on stage to perform, usually like you're more honest, authentic with your performance. You
Mhm.
haven't yet been, I don't know.
Trained.
Yeah, and then like also haven't been polluted by this like different filters of how you should do it,
Mhm.
and then like interestingly enough, her name is Naomi Srikandi. She's the leader of a very famous Indonesian theater group, I think called Theater Garasi. And but then like what's interesting is that usually the senior actors, they know how to fake it perfectly. So like their acting looks, yeah, excellent, but then like not as raw as the first time actors on stage. So
Mhm.
yeah, and then like with the workshop, like how many women involved, and then like how would you do it? Would you give them prompts,
Mm.
or yeah, and then what will the performance be there?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to touch on what you shared about like artists and like
Mm-hmm.
the authenticity and the rawness, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like as humans, that's what we crave is the pure authenticity
Mm-hmm.
of of someone seeing someone's soul and feeling them, and like we have movies and we have the actors, and yes, like you like they can really like channel and feel something, but there's nothing like just like truly feeling someone in their core essence of like of what it means to be human.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like being able to relate to that and then feel more connected in that way. I think that's what transcends like borders, ethnicity, like time zones, whatever it may be. That's
Yeah.
actually like for a human to see another human in that light, in that way, and like understand and feel them, like the empathy and the compassion and like the visibility. And now I know you more and you know me more, and may we be able to create something together even and live in harmony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that that's the nectar of life.
yeah. So even though like we have like different experiences, but then like the core emotion that is gets triggered by that experience can be the same. Not necessarily have to be negative, because I have a negative bias, but usually like for instance, when we read literature like about people who are being humiliated or at the bottom of their caste system, although we might not necessarily be there and we be part of that system, but then we can basically relate, like we're being looked down upon, whether like by our seniors or, yeah, although like it's different, like the casing, the surface, but then, yeah, the emotion is the same, and the vulnerability, I think, but also with joyful experiences, right?
Yeah, the full spectrum of all of the emotions, and may they all be welcomed.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about the casing. We all have our individual unique casings based on our upbringing and experiences and whatnot, and yet, yeah, like at the core, at the very, very core of it, it's joy or sadness or anger or whatever
helplessness.
yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like
Yeah.
using art or music or words or YouTube podcast live streams are simply mediums and ways for us to express these core emotions, these core messages that are ingrained in all of us. And they all have a different flair and a different casing, like you said. And yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's what embodiment means, right? So like not only embodying uh, your own emotion, but then helping the audience or the viewers, yeah, the audience to also like embody, like through like whatever kind of energy you emit out there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the final output? What will the final output look like?
Well, like I would love it. Like the intention is so like coming from this place of divinity and play and experimentation and creativity, may we be rewarded abundantly for it. And so it's like the more we play, the more we get paid.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the more we play, the more we get paid. Can we get I mean, I think so. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And like that's also like an imprint, right? That's an imprint for the participants, yes, but also for the receivers, for everyone around us. It's like, okay, may we create this positive feedback loop that like the more that we are fully expressed in our authenticity and the more that we are alive in our emotions, the more that we are in alignment with what is, with coherence and like the things that are being put out, the output, the more that the cycle of resources gets shared.
Oh yeah.
Like there's it's a positive feedback loop consistently. And again, like it just takes like one little like flick of a switch, and then like may that just create this cycle, and may it be able to impact millions, if not billions.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna take like a 5-minute break.
Okay.
And for the audience, any of you who would like to ask questions, please don't hesitate. We were very happy for you to what to say, write your questions in the comment section. And then we'll be back after 5 minutes. And then, like in the next segment, I will ask you about the NFT marketplace that you use. So stay tuned. Mm. Yeah, okay. Welcome back to our live streaming program. So, like in this final of the discussion, I would ask three questions, especially no, specifically about the NFTs. So, like because she mentioned about access to resources, and what do you think the NFTs can do welfare of the artists? Because usually when you're dealing with galleries and record labels, they usually suck a big amount of profit from the artists'
Right.
creations,
Hmm.
giving solely to the artist. But then, like, what do you think NFT? How do you think NFT is different from the centralized system?
Yeah, I feel like NFTs create an opportunity to give more ownership back to the creator itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it allows for the creator, the artist, to have a direct relationship with the collector or the purchaser of their art. And yes, there's still like this platform that connects the two people together, but it actually like creates a connection with the buyer and the creator. And I think that's super powerful in creating a community, a really strong community, because then it gives the artist more power and access to the people that are actually supporting you rather than having
Mm-hmm.
kind of like this middleman of the gallery and like, needing to like work with them. And I think in this day and age, like giving more power and access to the creator is what we're all here for.
Okay. And then, like, how did you decide to put the final yeah, actually, let me also say something here because, like, a lot of times for conceptual artists, it's hard actually to put into words, like the
Yeah.
final, as if I don't know if you have seen this, but then with the butter dance with Melati Suryodarmo, whereas like she was dancing on top of like a pile of butter and she kept on falling. So yeah,
Wait,
it's
what?
it's yeah, it's hard to explain. You can only see it when it's out. So yeah,
Yeah.
please wait for the output. Maybe we can also premiere the output. But I digress. My question is, why do you decide to put the final output on offer as an NFT instead of maybe like through like a gallery or
Mm.
yeah.
I think what really excites me is this notion of like a one of a kind item.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and truly like what creating, what we're creating is a one of a kind item in that sense of like there's only one of this kind and
Mm-hmm.
this is it. And
Yeah.
to have ownership of it, to have it be for as an offering, that is
Mm-hmm.
super aligned with like the way that an NFT works and how we can like really share that with the collective and have the collective support it in a way that is fully aligned with the values.
Okay. And what's the platform or marketplace that you use?
OpenSea.
OpenSea. Why
Yeah.
did you choose OpenSea?
Um, it's the easiest and it's free to join at this
Mm-hmm.
time, and it is, it seems like the most robust system in this current moment. I don't know if I would like if this is going to be like a forever thing, but in this moment, that's the one I'm using.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you have any consultants helping you, assisting you, or maybe you have already learned from your experience at Silicon Valley how to tinkle with these features and tools?
Yeah, I say I get help from friends, like dear friends of mine that have
Mm-hmm.
been like sharing their insights and their consultancy with me. I'm not working with particularly with like a specific one. It's more of like I'd say it's like a community project. So like
Mm-hmm.
the people that I attract or that I'm connected to, I feel like are sharing the exact piece of information that I need to receive in that moment. So
Mm-hmm.
trusting that.
Yeah. And my final question is, will you sell the item at the fixed price, or will you plan to also auction the item as a fundraising method?
Auction. Yeah.
Auction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Opening it up to all possibilities.
And then like the fund will go to the collective. Will it be like a what you call it, like saving or something like that?
Yeah, it goes back into the collective, and then we can create more experiences from that.
To finance like more projects, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, Holly. So thank you very much, and Would you like to read something for us? On the
Um,
theme of this conversation about embodiment or
Let me think. I didn't really
intuition?
prepare anything, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe let me see.
Okay.
Let me see. Maybe I have
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Um, I guess I could read my Art of Divine
Define
Creation
creation. Mm.
poem. Let's see. Okay. This is like a little poem that I wrote called The Official How-To Guide for Birthing Your Divine Creation. Step 1. Commit to being a deep student of life forever, because the teacher within you will always be learning, always be learning, always be learning. Step 2. Find yourself some true friends, belonging, safety. She is wise in her ways, in her ways, in her ways. Step 3. Fall in love with yourself, with a lover, with love itself. What goes in is what comes out. What goes in is what comes out. Step 4. Look to nature, the sun's commitment, the allowing of the river, the depths of the sea, the transmission from the birds. And once you feel like you've reached a level of wholeness, purge it all out, baby. Cathartic release. Let go of the bullshit of your smallness. And then find silence, peace, steady, steady. And then inhale and exhale if you know what I mean. And then from that place, envision the dream. And then go do the dream. You got to do the dream. You got to take aligned action step by step. Each step is the step. The way is the way. Every day it feels like play in all ways, always. And since poetry is turning spells into declaration, into proclamation, into reclamation, attention, attention, universe. Are you listening? Are you there? Can I get a sound check? Check, 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 check. I love you. I thank you. Universe, can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I see you. I hear you too. Allow it to come through with ease and grace and joy. Do nothing, and that is everything. Just like that. Uh-huh. 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 Yes. 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 That's right. Yes, that is right. You are right where you need to be, exactly as you are. Right here, right now. Just be. Your voice, your choice, your expression, your perception. These words, that vibration, we dance, take a chance. This, that, you, me, we, be. Just be. Just be.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so like I was looking at the yeah, this is where we're supposed to be right now.
Just right here,
Right
right
here, right
now.
now. So thank
This
you
is
very much, Holly. And then
thank you so
again,
much,
thank you
Obi.
for Gayatri Hotel, beautiful hotel which has hosted us this
Thank you
evening. And then of
guys.
course, if you come to Bali, please consider staying in this place. So and yeah, please follow subscribe to our YouTube channel, Blockchain Zoo, to get more videos. And then hopefully in the months to come, we can invite more exciting people from all walks of life to talk about the technology, but not from the technical side, more from their like what they're doing with it. So thank you. See you again soon.
Toodles.
Yeah.